sono Mariano Maluf e ho il privilegio di servire come il presidente del VMUG globale e io lavoro in CocaCola in the US e ho nato in Argentina, la mia famiglia, la mia mamma è nata in Italia, Sicilia e Calabria, ma mi dispiace, mio italiano non è buono come piacerebbe che fosse, quindi io continuerò in inglese. Sto sicuro che possiamo tradurre alcune domande in italiano, però io continuerò in inglese. Again, thanks for having me here. It's great. I want to talk to you about a few things. You're going to get inundated with technical content today. We have great speakers. And actually, before I get started, I want to give a huge thanks to PJ, Pietro, Luca, Andrea, Giuliano, and the whole team. So let's give them a hand for all the hard work they do. They really do great stuff for us, and they're actually great examples of what VMUG leaders are. These volunteer folks that have another job, right? Their secondary job sometimes, and they put all this effort and work to make this a great event for you all. So, as I was saying, you'll get inundated with technical content. The best of the best are here. We have Duncan and a roster of really great speakers. So my presentation will be somewhat technical, but I want to offer you more than anything some perspectives and some ideas and thoughts, so you can see what's coming, what's happening in our profession, in our industry, in our field, and some of the ways I've used in the past through my career to kind of stay ahead of the curve, if you will. Not always, but in some instances, and maybe spark some thoughts and ideas in you as well. So let's start with VMUG. What is VMUG? And all of you should know this, but you are absolutely part of VMUG. You're part of what makes us great, a vibrant, alive, growing community all over the world. And a couple of the words here that are important. We're an independent group, right? We're an independent organization. We're not part of VMware. VMware used to actually own and manage the user groups all over the world up until 2009, 2010, when a group of us, just customers and users, started this organization as an independent entity from VMware. And today we have over 118,000 members, again, all over the planet, and you're part of it. And the way I wanted to show you this briefly is, what is VMUG and who is VMUG and what all we do. And so there's a couple of infographics here that show the conferences that we have around the world, some of the content that we deliver to you in different formats. The idea here is that you can see the spread of industry. So in our community, we have big companies, people representing big companies, small companies, different segments in the industry, and different programs that we keep refining and tweaking to provide you with increased value. So, but it's also important to see that in my view, we keep this 3, 4, 5, 6 different big areas of focus year after year on the board. So part of what drew me to be part of VMUG is I was a user, a customer. I was working for the Home Depot in Atlanta in the US. It's a huge home improvement retail chain. And I was having some issues with VMware. I was having some questions, how do we make this technology work? Does it work, first of all? What is this vMotion thing? Does it really mean that I can move things dynamically? It's too good to be true. It sounds very magical, but what are the bits and bytes and the nuts and bolts of how it works? And so I started, talking to my VMware team. And not that I didn't trust them, right? But I wanted an independent opinion on some of those technologies. So I joined the local VMUG in Atlanta, and 2004, 2005. And it was a very small group, you know, a couple of us around some pizzas and beers, I mean Coke. And we started talking about, you know, what works, what doesn't work, how can we make better use of these technologies that VMware is offering. And, you know, we quickly realized that there were other groups doing the same thing. And as I said, VMware was kind of helping out, you know, giving some souvenirs and some things to the users. And then we started getting more and more interest from sponsors, right? How many people here are representing sponsors? Quite a few. So guess what? Thanks to you as well, because you make this event possible. Without you, right? Without money, there's no mission for VMUG. So we need your support. So again, thanks for all you do for the community. So, you know, I quickly realized, okay, this is a great way to actually get an independent opinion on how these products work. This is a great community. And it wasn't really that foreign to me of a concept. I've been involved in user communities since I can remember, since before I started my first real job in IT. Anybody here remember the Commodore 64? We all have gray hair. So my first user group was actually Commodore 64 user group in my native town of Córdoba in Argentina. And I became fascinated with computers early on. And again, being part of that community, this was in a basement of somebody's house, if you can believe that. And we got together and shared tips and tricks on how to do better programs and what was the latest game and how we could make better use of technology. So after that stint at the Commodore 64 user group, I started working in IT right out of high school and joined another user group, this time Novell Network. Anybody remember Novell here? Most of us, of course. So again, now I was a professional trying to, you know, find out what to do with these technologies and what worked, what didn't work. And once again, this concept of community of practice, right? And this is something that I want to emphasize, because to me, VMUG is truly a community of practice. And if you read the literature around what that is, the attributes of a community of practice versus just, you know, a loosely community of groups, you'll find out that VMUG checks the attributes in all dimensions, right? It is truly a community that's gathered around networking, knowledge share, activities, and truly situated learning. So there are other groups out there and other communities, but they are only event-driven and event-focused, right? We are way more than that, right? We're a growing community of practice, and what that means is really we're all in this together. We're all kind of trying to solve the same issues with the same, broadly speaking, the same sets of technologies, and that's what binds us together, right? And you know, as a community of practice, you know, you can look at it as a tribe from an anthropological perspective, and there are certain things that makes us be part of it, that makes us feel that we belong. And you know, of course, the number one is we're all geeks, right, in one way or another, right? And furthermore, we're geeks around the VMware technologies. We're not confused about who we are. As a VMUG, you know, VMware user group community of practice, we're not just a neutral user group. Our activities, our knowledge sharing revolves around VMware. And so I truly urge you to become more active because this is actually, this has had value to me. Communities of practice in general have had value, tremendous value during my career because this is where stuff happens. This is where we discover new career opportunities. This is where we discover what worked and what didn't work. I was in Australia recently and I was talking to a colleague of mine in this industry, and he was trying to solve the same problems I'm trying to solve for CocaCola, for cloud computing and orchestration and brokerage. And you know, within the span of maybe 20, 30 minutes, I realized I could have saved months and months of you know, bumping my head against the wall, trying to solve some issues with certain technologies. And I mean, does that have value or not? I mean, that has tremendous value. So we have to constantly find new ways between us to improve our knowledge sharing capabilities, to add new channels of communication and expand the way we communicate and share. Because I think, again, we can save money, we can save time, we can advance our careers, it's all good. It's really a matter of how we get involved, how we choose to help each other and help the community. So I don't know about you, but I'm really, really excited to be part of this community. And the fact that you're here, that you're taking time off to show up, the fact that we have the sponsors we have on the exhibit floor and here, I think it's a testament to what this community is today and what it can be in the future. Another quick example of the commitment we have from VMware, just to give you an idea. How many times have we done the luncheon? 3, 4 times, I think, maybe 4 times. So every year at VMworld, we do a luncheon with our leaders. It's our way to say thanks for all they do, for all they put up with, and all the efforts they do on their own time. And what we have is some awards that we give to the groups and leaders that are really exemplifying the values of VMUG. But also we have 3 or 4 executives, including Pat Gelsinger, VMware CEO, for 30 to 40 minutes of unscripted Q&A. So think about that. One of the top technologies, I would venture to say probably one of the top 5 technology leaders in the planet today, is standing as I am here and just addressing the community of leaders that represent your communities all over the world, and he can take any type of question. Now you name one, any other user group where the CEO of the company they represent would do that, and I can tell you that I haven't heard of anything like this. So this is a testament. This is the top guy, right? The top guy showing up and taking any type of questions. And mind you, he did that at VMworld in the US, in Barcelona, the week that the merger with Dell was announced, right? So he flew the day before, or the night before, showed up in Barcelona, and that same night he flew out somewhere else in Europe. And he actually made it to our meeting, right? One of, I don't know, however many meetings he had that day. But he had the perfect storm of things to say, you know what, guys, I have to excuse myself, I can't make it, right? He could have said that. He can say that anytime, right? I'm sure he cancels more than one meeting to his staff and others. But he values this community so much that he decided to show up. He canceled other things and came to our luncheon and gave a Q&A to our leaders. What a great guy, but also what a great testament to what this community represents to VMware. In my experience of over 25 years in the industry, the companies that have survived the better are the ones that have the strongest community of practice behind them. And I think VMware believes that, I believe that, and hopefully you believe that as well. So let me now kind of change the subject a little bit, and let's talk about something that we're all, I think, getting very, very aware of in our different industries. So we're all familiar with the expression, a Kodak moment, right? Remember that expression? There's a Kodak moment, and you went ahead and took the picture, right? So it used to be a great thing, but now a Kodak moment is actually not a good thing, right? Because they were disrupted. And the irony of it all is that they actually invented digital photography, right? And they somehow got so enamored with film that they couldn't let go, and they actually got their position in the market was basically taken by competitors. So they missed the point, right? And they invented the technology that disrupted them. They weren't able to disrupt themselves in time, right? Another great example that everybody gives is Blockbuster and Netflix, right? But even Netflix almost got it wrong, right? Because they also had the physical, logistical nightmare of shipping DVDs. I don't know if that's the way it happened here in Europe. But in the US, you would get DVDs on the mail and all that stuff. And it was great, but it was a direct competition of what Blockbuster was doing, just a little better, just incrementally better, right? And they were starting to dabble with this streaming technology. And luckily, they said, you know what, we can't do both things. We have to pick one, and we shouldn't have this nightmare of logistical warehouses and sending stuff physically. So we're going to just invest. We're going to go all in to streaming digital technology, digital media. And they are what they are today. The other example is Uber. Right? I was reading an article today. 1 million trips of Uber drivers in China every day. Isn't that amazing? And this company wasn't even in our vocabulary like 2-3 years ago. It's incredible, right? So this is not fantasy land. This is real stuff happening to real businesses. And the lifespan of a Fortune 500 company, I think, is going down, right? Because it's hard to disrupt. And I work for a company that's 129 years old, but we somehow have been able to reinvent ourselves, year after year to keep relevant, stay relevant, and to do things in an innovative way. Also, the demographics are changing, right? We don't really know how to deal with the new demographics, how to do social networking, how to engage with our customers, consumers, partners, etc. So these things, again, how can the business grow and innovate, right? Okay, so these are pictures of real markets for us as a company. So I'm going to mix my hat, my VMUG hat, and my CocaCola hat. So if I'm CocaCola, if I'm in charge of distribution, right? How do I get my product through a bridge like that, right? To reach emerging markets, emerging consumers, right? I have to kind of change the way I do distribution. I have to change the mechanism, the transportation, the physical elements of that value change from a logistics perspective. Also, how do I get the track in that traffic, right? And these are real geographies for the company. We operate in 207 countries out of 208 countries in the world. Anybody can guess who that country is? Yes. Someone should give him something to that person. I don't have anything with me right now, but good answer. So again, how do we disrupt? How do we become more agile and faster? And if you're in IT, you know that everybody talk about cloud, but sometimes I feel like I'm in the eye of the hurricane more than a cloud, because you have all these trends, irreversible trends and pressure vectors coming at you. Right? If you're the CIO or the director or manager or an IT practitioner, an IT admin or an engineer, you're dealing with some aspects of these things. Don't tell me you're not. Even if you don't care about numbers, like I do. I'm not really good with budgetary numbers and finance and that sort of thing. But guess what? I have to be able to innovate and do my job better, right? The company has some objectives about, it's called Vision 2020, Coca-Cola, that is. And one of the objectives is to double profits and double revenue by the year 2020. It doesn't say anything about doubling the IT budget by the year 2020, right? So how are we going to double profits and revenue and keeping the budgets flat? That has something to do with what I do from an IT technologies perspective. So how can IT, meaning you, be more agile and strategic to help the business, right? This is what it's all about. The fact that you've adopted VMware shows me that you were innovative enough, you were plugged into what was happening in the industry and decided to give this thing a try. Yeah, it sounded too good to be true, but vMotion works and we know how it works, and then the company continued innovating. Now it's getting into NSX and network virtualization, and let's do the same thing we did for computing the network layer. Let's do the same thing we did for computing the storage layer. Let's get into cloud, let's get into containers. So how are we adapting to that changing landscape in the marketplace and within VMware? How many people here have played with NSX or vSAN? Not a lot, right? It's new. It's new, it's risky. We don't really know if we have a use case. Hopefully we have Duncan here. I don't know if he's here right now, but he will give us some pointers on how that works and how we can make use of that. But look, the fact is, there are a couple of trends that I want to talk about. I don't know how much time I have. I completely lost some time, so somebody needs to tell me how much time I have. Remember this? How networks used to be cabled? Don't tell me you don't remember this. Some of you have used the tools to do the cable, the coax cable. I did it. Peeled my fingers trying to put the things by hand. So then we started having data center rooms or server rooms that looked like that, right? I worked for a telco, joint venture, wireless telco in Córdoba between AT&T and GTE. And the data center that was actually serving the first customer call center for the company was running out of a hotel room that looked exactly like that. So that was the data center. So we have to cable computers between themselves, right? We didn't have great technologies. We had to configure things manually, go to the console, right? Command line and all that. Then became structured cabling. Look at that. That's pretty, right? That's the way every data center that we worked on looked like, right? Yep. Yeah. You're all liars, like I am. It looked like that. Come on, let's be honest, right? Let's be honest. And don't touch it, because touch one cable and who knows what turbo will go out. So, and so what we had at that point was sneakerware, right? Sneakerware. We had to run across the data center and run cables in our hubs and routers. We had very little configuration tools. It was mostly physical, right? And we wanted our data centers to look like Facebook and Google and that sort of thing, but it was a pipe dream until we discovered how to do it in software. So the point here is, just as we transformed the way we built, designed, implemented, and managed networks, became very, from the physical to more of a software abstracted, right? VNix and all that stuff with VMware, right? The point here is, we're now getting into that with NSX as well. And here, this is one of the big trends that's happening all over the world. I mean, you have the president or the CEO of a huge bank in Europe saying, we are in the software business. Wait a minute, they're a bank. They're not a software company. But they're saying, we have to think like a software company because software eats the world. This is Mark Andreessen said that, not me, right? And it is true. A lot of the things are being displaced by a software technology. Think about the apps world. Think about Uber, right? And how they strike gold by merging the technology of an app, software app, with the demands of a workforce that was coming out of the recession and providing great service, right? So it's a combination of these things at the right time that makes it happen. But fundamentally, our industry is shifting to a software-driven architecture. That's why we keep hearing VMware and others talk about software-defined this, software-defined that. Intel calls it software-defined infrastructure. VMware, through Raghu, I think he coined that term, SDDC, right? So this is, again, no fantasy land. This is real. This is happening. There's a huge shift. Okay, so the next shift I want to talk about has to do with the game of chess. Anybody knows about the legend of the invention of chess? Have you heard about that? So some accounts place it in India, some others in China. Who knows? Who knows? The point here is the inventor of chess actually went to the emperor and presented the game. And the emperor loved it because it actually somehow represented the way the society worked. The king's here and the queen does this and can do certain things. And all these pieces had meaning, right? The knights and the tower and all. So he loved it so much that said, I want to give you a reward. Whatever it is that you want, I want to concede. So he said, tell me what you want. And the inventor said, I'm a very humble man. All I want is a grain of rice on the first cell of the chessboard, and then I want double that on the second one, and double that on the third one. So 2 on the second cell, 4 on the third one, so on and so forth. And the emperor said, wow, you truly are a humble man. All you want is just a few grains of rice. And some of you know where this is going, right? So this has been articulated by people way smarter than me, Ray Kurzweil and Andy McAfee. But the point is, if you work out the progression to the 64th cell on the chessboard, you get to 2 to the 63. 2 to the power of 63. Anybody know what that number is? It's 18 million trillion grains of rice. So, as you can imagine, there's one version of the story that ends in the kingdom being bankrupted by this, right? Because by the time you get to the 63, it's basically the amount of rice equal to 2 times the volume of Earth, with the oceans included. So one version again is the kingdom was bankrupted by this, and the other version of the ending of the story is that the inventor was beheaded. So we have to be careful, right? Obviously, I prefer the positive side of the story, but look, the point here is we're entering into the second half of the chessboard, right? And what that means is the emperor wasn't able to process mathematically. We're very bad as humans. This has been studied. We can't really understand geometric progression, right? We think we do, but what our brain does is we just chart a line, right, that is just incremental. We can't do the whole exponential thing in our brains. So he started doing the math, and by the time you get to the first half, the end of the first half of the chessboard, you get to the equivalent of a couple of fields of rice, which is, it's not enough to bankrupt the kingdom, right? But again, 18 million trillion grains of rice will do the trick. So the point here is economists and mathematicians have been studying the rate at which technology changes. And Alvin Toffler had a great book. I think it was called The Third Shift. In the 80s, he said the rate of change has changed, right? So you can say that, the nature of change has changed, meaning that there was always change. 10, 15, 20 years ago when we started our careers, 30 years ago for some of us, right? There was always change. It was always the next release of Microsoft. It was always the next release of, now we have NT. Oh, now we have, we're going from OS2 to whatever Microsoft is coming up with. IBM, Power, HPUX on that side, RISC versus Intel x86. The next version of SAP, the next version of this, the next version of that. It was always change. So let's not pretend that now all of a sudden change is new. But the rate of change has changed, right? And it's continuing to change. And we're entering the second half of the chessboard. And that's what I want to talk about. So are we ready? Are we ready? Do we have the right mindset? Do we have the right culture set to understand that? Can we be innovation catalysts for our business? Well, we have to do this thing called evolution, right? Well, some people said, no, it's not an evolution, it's a revolution. Well, some people say, well, let's compromise and actually let's do rapid evolution, right? Which, whatever it is that you choose to do, you need to be prepared with the right mindset and the right culture set to do it. So part of the problem to do that is, we can't use the same mindset that was used to create the problems in the first place, right? So we have to change our culture set or our mindset. So how do we do that? Well, all we want is to really make IT, make our jobs to help the business, right? We're not IT for IT unless you are a software company. And even then, you want to help the business. So you want to really go to this upward trend to become an innovator and a catalyst, not to just be a good technology manager or a good technology operator for the company, because you will become extinct, right? We've all heard about shadow IT, right? That's no fantasy, that's happening. So you could be disrupted as well, so you should disrupt yourself. I'm going to skip this in the interest of time. Part of the problem is we don't have the right eyes, right? This is like the blind, at Coke 2 or 3 years ago, we had to define what cloud was, because this is like the old tale with the blind people touching different parts of the elephant and believing it's different things. No, it's a rope, no, it's a wall, no, it's a, right? So again, having the right set of eyes is important, and Marcel Proust said it. Unfortunately, the font missing the last word there is having new eyes. So the true voyage of discovery is not going to new landscape, but it's developing new eyes, right? So you have to recognize that sometimes you're blind to be able to see what's out there. And I'm going to again skip this in the interest of time. So one of the problems that we face is that we're afraid of failure. I don't want to have another outage, or else I might lose my job, right? But if you go and actually ask the startups, how do they operate? They have this lean startup method where they actually not aim to fail, don't get me wrong, nobody wants to fail, right? But they learn quickly. They say, if we're going to fail, let's fail quickly, right? And then let's learn and then pivot. In IT, we don't really do that, right? We still run IT for the most part in this kind of waterfall mindset and model. So we take a long time to do it, and we have to change that. We have to be comfortable with failure. We have to be able to, fail fast and learn fast and fix fast, right? Those are the key things. And if it worked for this guy, president of Coca-Cola for so many years, it surely should work for us. So finally, in this landscape where we keep talking about technology, it's good to have automation, but we don't want to automate the wrong thing, right? And management is important, but we want less management and more automation, right? We don't want to have to be looking at screens all over the place. So things like VR Ops and VCAC allows us to now become more intelligent and actually do more management. So think about it. How do you change your mindset and the mindset of your teams to become more flexible and more adept to doing this kind of automation? Well, let's use a musical analogy, right? You will have your experts on different instruments, right? You'll have your expert on playing piano, playing guitar, playing drums. Those are, things that we know. We all know those instruments. So adding automation to those things, right? You need those experts, but you also need experts on actually creating the automation. And sometimes those people are not the same. Those people are not the same. So you need expertise from the outside to do it. And you shouldn't be afraid to get that help or to augment your own skills, right? So before you were the server guru, the server god, right? Maybe now you need to become the service catalog curator or the automation guru, right? So you need to transform your skills. You need to add, just like this, analog actuators on these known instruments, right? In some cases, you'll have to invent new instruments, right? This is the string section of a thing called orchestrion by a musician called Pat Metheny. So it was not possible to build actuators on actual violins or violoncellos. It was just doesn't work, physically speaking. So he had to invent new instruments to do the string section. And then finally, there are instruments that you don't touch. Just leave it alone, right? Don't automate it. Not everything can be automated, right? You have to be able to discern what needs to be automated. That's an actual guitar called Picasso. And he's the only guy who can play. You're not going to automate that thing, right? So leave it alone, recognize where the value is, and pivot fast and go to the things that have value. So that's him playing the whole thing. So he's orchestrating his internal private cloud, his internal server farm from the guitar, right? He's actually automating all those instruments. And if you have the option, the opportunity to go see him playing all those instruments, he could have done this digitally, right? He could have kind of simulated and doing sampling, but he actually built the whole thing with help from experts on mechanical engineering and automation to build this automated thing called the orchestrion. So think about new ways of attacking your problems, yes, by all means bring automation, but bring it in the right areas of your business. And I'm going to leave you with a few quotes at the end. Just this is important too. Before building the right whateverware, cloudware, VMware, whatever it is, you need to have the right team and the right culture set. And there are 3 quotes here for you to ponder. I'm not going to have time to go through the whole thing. Hopefully you get some value from this content, and be cognizant that things don't happen magically and immediately, so you'll have to manage the present while inventing the future. Hopefully I've given you a few ideas to kind of think differently and to attack problems with a new set of eyes, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks a lot.